Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night from when you're watching this video. This is John from IT Skills Academy with yet another video. Today, I present to you yet another pharmacy management system. I'll take you through how I created this simple pharmacy management system using PHP and MYSQLI. To make it simple, I'll break it into several episodes as follows. In the first episode, I'll basically be introducing you to the system and also show you the basic dashboard that we'll be using for the system. In the second episode, we are going to set up the database. Then in the third episode, we'll be creating the dashboard now. And in the fourth episode, we'll be adding the patients. Fifth, we'll be adding or managing the patients rather. In the sixth episode, we'll be adding and managing suppliers. And then in the sixth and in the seventh episode, we'll be dealing with drugs, that is entering or adding the drugs into the system, and also managing the drugs in terms of editing, in terms of deleting the drugs. We'll also be dealing with the expired drugs in the 8th episode, and in the last but not the least episode number 9, we'll be dealing with the billing system, that is where we'll be managing the transactions and what have you. So hope this is interesting, and without so much ado, let's just get started. Welcome to episode 5 of how to create a pharmacy management system. In this episode, we'll be inserting suppliers into the system. In the previous episode, we have learned how to insert patients into the system. We have learned how you can be able to edit and delete the patients from the system. And so we'll be doing the same in this specific episode. However, in this episode, we will be dealing with suppliers. Remember, we'll be requiring the suppliers in the next episode as we insert drugs into the system. So without so much ado, let's get started. So the form that we are seeing in front of us is a form that we created in a previous episode. So if you want to learn how you can be able to create a form using Tailwind, CSS, and of course HTML, you would like to go into the description of this video, grab a link to the whole playlist, and in one of the videos you're going to learn how you can be able to create a form using Tailwind, CSS, and HTML. And so, having mentioned that, in this episode we'll just be dealing with PHP and MySQL only. So now that we are on the same page, let me just get into Visual Studio. Well, here I am in Visual Studio, and all I need to do is to head on to the project folder, and from the project folder I need to pull out the add suppliers. And so this is the add suppliers page, and what I'm interested with here is the specific form, this form here, because it is this form that will help me to insert the data into the database. And talking about the database, let me just show you the database here. And so I'm just going to head on to PHP my admin, and within my database, that is the pharmacy system DB, I'm just going to head on to the suppliers. And you can see here I have the field names, ID, name, location, status, email, and phone, and the table is currently empty. So the aim of this episode, or the objective, is to ensure that we can be able to use this specific form to insert data into this specific table. So without so much ado, let's just head back to Visual Studio here. And within my form here, I'm just going to go to the input fields, and in the input fields I need to add names, because it is the names that will help me to be able to grab the data that has been inputted in the form. So what do I mean? So I just need to come to the form, and I'm just going to add an attribute called name, and this name is now going to house the specific data that I want to pull from this specific input. So basically this one I need to rename it, because now this one should be a supplier name, and so this supplier name is the same thing that I'm going to put here. So a supplier name, like that. Or rather, I can just go to PHP my admin, and I need to get the field name from here. And so the name that I have here, I recommend to you that it is the same that you can put here, just for consistency and just to try and avoid errors. So I'm going to have the name there, and so the next input field, I'm also going to give it an attribute, and this one will be one of these. So let me just get to this and see. Oh yeah, I need to rename this, because the one that I'm using here is one for the drugs, and so let me just use this one. So maybe I can talk of location as the next. So this one will be location, and so therefore I also need to rename the placeholder here so that it is location, just to avoid confusion there. And the next thing, maybe I can talk of email, and I'm also going as well to include that, so that one will be email. And maybe lastly we are going to have that is a phone number. We're going to have the phone number, and the status we're going to leave it like that, because that is a field name that will be automatic. In fact, let me just show you. If I go to the structure here, I need to have the status with all. It in fact has a default value that is 0, and so when it is 0, it therefore means that the supplier is active. Sorry. And if it is 1, then it means the supplier is inactive. And so we'll still be writing some script that will be helping us to update this value from 0 to 1 to be able to indicate the status of the supplier. So let me just get back here, and so that means whatever the only field we are left with is phone. So I can come and have a phone there, like so. Let me have these in caps, like that. So let me just refresh the form, just so that it is updated with the new information. Now we have the supplier name, location, email, and phone. So that's working fine. And so now the next thing that we need to do is to go to the button. So this button here, we need to ensure that it is a button that can respond when it is clicked, because as it is right now, it's just a button. So I need to come and add an attribute called type here, and this one I just need to give it the type of submit. So that means now the button can be used to pass information to another place. So the other thing that I can also add here is name, because this is the same thing that I'm going to use to be able to know that the form has been clicked, to be able to know that the form has been clicked, and so therefore I can be able to receive the information. So we're going to do this practically so that you can be able to understand what I mean. And in fact, that is the next thing that we're going to do. So let me just head on to the action here, and the action here will be the location or I'll just be like taking a person to another page from where we are going to have the information that we have collected, and so therefore the information can be passed into the database. So let me just do that practically so that you can also be able to understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the includes folder here, and here I'm going to add another page. I'm going to call it and suppliers.php, and so for now it will be empty. And so now that is what I'm going to include here, and so that one will be includes and suppliers.php. So this is a page that will be very, very important, because it is the page that will include the script that will now help us to add the information that we have collected from the form into the database. So it is here that we are going to like verify that everything is okay before the information is passed into the database. It will also include the instruction of where we should go next when the information is inserted into the database, and also what we should do like when the information is not inserted into the database. So like it can also contain a message that will help us to know whether the information was successful or not. So let's just do that practically so that you also get to grab that even better. So now that we have that there, and we have the button having the name submit and the type submit, then it therefore means that I can go to the add supplier here, and I can open the PHP tag, and here I can use the if statement, and the condition that I'm going to use is if it's set, and we want to test whether if the button is clicked basically. So if it's set, and here I'm going to use the post, because that is the method that I'm using here. In fact, let me do something here. Let me add the method as equal to post. So when you're working with forms in PHP, the method will either be post or get. So with the get, this is where you're passing the information via the URL or the address or the link, but with post, this is where you're collecting information, and through the post method passing it into another form or into the database. So in our case, it will be from this page into another page. So now that we have the method post here, it therefore means that we can say that if it's set, and so now the post, and here I'm going to have a square brackets, and I'm going to talk about submit. So basically now we want to say that if the button named submit, as you can see here, is clicked, what should happen? So for example, just to test that, I can come and say if the button is clicked, then maybe we can echo, I was clicked. Yeah, we're just testing that button there to see if that is going to work. So we can head on back to the browser here. I refresh that, and I try to just click on save, and as you can see, it says I was clicked. That's because that was successful, and that is because we have the method post here, which we have included here, and we also have this name submit. So by the time we are clicking on the save, which has the name submit, then we are able to be redirected into this location here. And in this location, once this method is working properly, then we are able to get the message I was clicked. And so now we can take it even further by now trying to collect some information. So let's say, for example, we want to be able to get the supplier name that has been supplied in the form. So what we can do is we can come back to the and supplier here, and so here we can come and say we can come and have a variable called name, for example, and say that that is equals to the post. Remember, we'll be using the post in all the scenarios because we are that is like where the information is like being stored. And so here we want to be able to get the name. Remember, in the add supplier, in the add supplier form, we have the name, and so using the post method, we can be able to pass this name through the post method to this specific page here. And so now that we have the name there, so like this is the information from the form, and we are storing it in a variable called name, and so it therefore means that I can come here and say echo, and I can be able to echo the variable name. So let us see if that is going to work. So I go back to the browser, I go back to the form, I refresh that one more time, and here I can give I can just type a name, like let's say maybe I type John Doe, for example, and then I say save, and as you can see, I'm able to get the name John Doe because it is being passed through the post method. And so now that is what I'm going to do with the rest of the data or information that I need. So I'm going to grab this and I duplicate it several times because here I required the email, I require the location, I require what else? We have name, email, location, and finally we have the phone. And so I will also talk about the same here, that is location, and here I'm going to have email. Remember, the name that you're going to use here in the post should be the name that you have provided here. So this name that you have provided for each and every input is what you are going to use here, because otherwise if you use a different name then you'll not be able to get that, because it's like the information is being stored in this name passed through the post method, and so for you to be able to get it you need to use the similar name to call it. So now that we have all the information there sorry, I can now try to create a script that now we insert it into the database, because up until this level we have just collected the information from the form, and so now we want to have the information that we have collected being inserted into the database. And so now down here I'm going to create a variable and I'm going to call it SQL. So that is SQL. And I'm going to set this to be equal to insert into suppliers, because I want to insert this information that we have on top here into the suppliers table, and so I have to write the insert statement, which should be like it's good that you have it in capital letters, although it's not like mandatory. So insert into suppliers. Remember, suppliers is the table. If I can just show you here, it is a table that is going to house our the supplier information, as you can see here. So insert into suppliers and then set the information as follows. So here it's also very important to ensure that the names that you're going to use here matches the names that you have here. So if you talk about name, you should have a name in your script. If you have location, if you have status, if you have email, if you have phone, then they should follow each other like that. And so it's always good that the name remains consistent. That way you're not going to have that issue. So the name should be set to the variable name. So this variable, I'm going to house it within a single quote, and I'm going to have a comma at the end. So name, so I'm saying that this variable that I have stored here is the one that I want to be stored in this column heading in my table here. So let me just go back to the browser here so that we can have that clear picture. So I'm saying that name that I've collected from the form, I want it to be stored in this column, and so the rest will follow suit. So if it is like email, it will be equal to the variable email, and we have a location which should be equal to a location, and finally we have what else? We also have the phone that should be equal to. So this one, because it's the last one, we are not going to put a comma. If you put a comma in the last one there, it is not going to work. Yeah, so and let me get rid of this. Looks like we have a duplicate. Yeah, so there should be 4 of them. So at this point, the information is inserted into the database, or can be inserted into the database. But before we even finish, we need to ensure that, or we need to be sure that yes, indeed, the information has been inserted into the database. We need to inform the user that the information has been inserted into the database, and so that we can be able to give the accurate information of whether the information has been inserted into the database or not. We need to come and do something else. So here I'm going to create a variable called results, and this one I'm going to set it to be equal to MySQLI. So basically I'm just creating a MySQLI query. Sorry for the typo, that one should be query, and here the arguments will be con. So this one will ensure that the connection to the database is successful, and 2, I'm also going to test the variable SQL, that is to ensure that the information was inserted into the database and set into these names successfully. And so talking about con, this reminds me that we need to include the database connection here, and so because I already have the script that connects to the database, I don't need to write it again because I have it in my includes here, which is here. So all I can do is to include this script in my page here. So I can just talk of require, and I'm going to talk of con.php. So by doing this, I have now included the whole of this script here, but now in a more easier and clean way. Okay, so now that we have the connection there, we can proceed now to say that okay, if the result is true, then we should tell the user that the information was inserted successfully. Otherwise, if it is not successful, one of the two is having an error, then we should tell the user that the process was not successful. Okay. So how I'm going to do that is to use an if statement. So I'll say if, and so the condition will be if the variable result is equals to true, then what will be the code? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a session so that we can have this information, or we can have a message being displayed on the suppliers table, our page, because that is where we are going to redirect the user. And so we want to redirect the user with a message of whether the process was successful or not. So I'm going to create a global variable here, that is the session. We're creating a global one because we are going to use it in a different page and not this one. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk about update. That will be the name of the session, and so I'll set that to be equal to the message that I want to show. So I'm going to create a div. Let me also close this there. I'm going to have a div, and I'm going to close it as well. So that is a div, div. And so it is here that I'm going to have the message. Maybe I can say supplier inserted successfully. We can just style it a little bit. So I'm going to use Tailwind CSS. So I'm going to talk about maybe BG of green, maybe 500, a PY of like K2. Yes, so I think that's better for now. We will style it further from there. So that's it. And so now below that I'm now going to have the header. So basically what the header will do is it will now help me to put the link to where I want the user to be redirected to if this was successful, if the information was inserted successfully. So I'm going to talk about a location, location, and so now this location will be the suppliers page. So I'm going to talk about suppliers.php. So I hope that I have that page. Let me just confirm, suppliers.php. So I want the user to be redirected here once that is successful. And so else, if that is not successful, I also need to redirect the user. Maybe I'll redirect the user to the same place, but now with a different message. So I'm just going to grab this because it will be the same. I just need to change the information. So that one, and maybe this one I can call it failed, and this one I can make it red instead of green. So just call it red, and so I can say was not inserted successfully. Or rather, let me just say inserted, because successfully looks like a repetition. So we'll be directing the user to the same page even if there is an error, but now of course there will be the error message that will tell the user that was not successful, and so maybe they need to retry again, or maybe contact the administrator. So maybe you can also include that information here, like try again, or like contact admin. So such information is helpful for the user to be aware of what has happened. And so I think that's about it. That's all the script that we need to insert the information into the database. So let's now try to wait a minute. I can already detect an issue here with this one. Looks like we need to, what's up with that? Okay, looks like we need to close it one more time here. Just close it, and okay, that looks nice. So let me now just head on back to the browser. Go back, then I need to refresh that one more time so that I'm sure that I'm getting the current status. So now I'll just come and put the information here. So I'm just trying to put some dummy information here. So let's try to insert that. So just say save, and we are having an issue that is undefined variable SQL on line 20. Let's see that on line 20 variable SQL. Why is that the case? Because I think we already have that here. Then we have declared that, oh sorry, this one, there was a typo here, it should be SQL. I didn't notice that. Yeah, so we also have it there, and that's what is the issue. So let's give it another try. That was inserted successfully. Okay, right now we cannot see the message because we need to again write another script that will make that possible. And so let me see, we go back to the PHP my admin, and now we try to refresh the page to see if we have the information. And as you can see, we are having that information here, but I think we're having a problem with the phone because it looks like, oh, I need to go to the structure, maybe the phone 20. Does it? Okay, let me check that. Maybe 20 should be more than enough. Integers for a phone number, but maybe just to be safe, because wait, I intended to have that as 100 and not 10, because now with 10 I could be making it worse. So yeah, there's no issue with having it as 100, even if that is more than we need. But anyway, that is there. Let's browse. Of course, we're not going to get the information yet, but in our next when we insert the number next, then we should be able to have that. You can see by default the status is 0. And so that means that the pharmacist, the supplier, is active. So now all we need to do now before we add this episode 5 is to have that message appear here in case of an error or in case of success, and also grab that information that we have in the database, this one here, and display it here. So as you can see, we have a lot to do, so let's just do that. So I'm just going to head on back to the suppliers now. I need to go to the suppliers. I don't need the and supplier for now, so I'm just going to remove it. And so just to save time, because we had done this previously, let me just head on back to the patients. So that is patients, and I'm just going to explain that instead of typing it again. So here I'm calling the session, the global variable session here, and this is where we are showing the success or fail message. So in fact, I'm just going to grab this because we need the same in the suppliers, and I want to have it in the same location. So that is 3 divs. So 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3. So we should have it here. So that's why we are going to have that, and so this is how we are going to have it. So we are just saying that if the session is set, the name of the session, we include it there, then we should be able to echo that session that is set, and then when we are done, we can refresh the page and remove the message, so that the message, because now when we say echo, the message that we have typed in the and suppliers page will be displayed, and so we don't want to always have that information there. We want, when we refresh, that success message disappears. So this is a script that will make that to be possible. Now this one will be for the success, and so we also need one a similar one for the fail. So I'm going to grab these two, and I'm going to have that in the suppliers. And just if I can remind you, maybe getting back to the add suppliers here, you remember that we have the session being named as update. So that's the same name that we also need to do, because basically what we are calling is this specific variable that we have set, so that we can be able to have this message. Or if there is an error, then we'll be calling this variable which is going to have this message. So basically now what I'm saying is I need to have that update replacing the success here. The same thing with this one. I think that it is failed, so it is okay. So it can stay like that. And so now let me try to go to the and suppliers, and I try to insert another supplier. So maybe this time now this one will be Jane Doe, and maybe these guys are from Nearly, and so their email is jnd@gmail.com, and they have their number here, being like that, and so I can save, and we don't have that. Oh, sorry, there is one more thing that is very, very important that we have not done, and that is to start the session. We need to start the session in both the pages. So here I need to come and say session session underscore start. So I need to have it there like so, and I also need to grab it and have it in our suppliers page. So PHP, and I can have it here. So that one should be working fine for me now. If I try to add another one, but let's test that. So that is and suppliers, So let me just come up with another domain name here. Sorry, this one should be the email should go there and the phone number. And so now I save, and we can see supplier inserted successfully. Only that it is not formatted as we would expect, but we're not so much interested with the formatting. Yeah, but my eye usually likes seeing some fancy things, so I'll be forced to style that. Let me just grab this. This one should be justify. Let me grab these CSS classes here that we had for the insert patients, and that's the one that I'm going to style my message with here. And the same case should also come here. Yeah, but now this one, the gradient will be red. And so that one should now appear. As you can see, when I refresh it, it disappears. So let's try to add yet another supplier here. So we can have okay, that was not formatted as I would expect, but anyway, that's another thing that we can do maybe some other time. I don't know why that was not styled. Sorry, we are missing a comma there. Rather, we're missing that single quote there. That I think is the biggest issue that making us not to have that styled as we would expect. So let's see if we change the information here. Yeah, so that's fine, and maybe we can make it a little bit wide by maybe adding a py, this padding top and bottom. Maybe we can give it a 4. So py of 4. Yeah, so and I think that's better, and that's similar to what we're having in the patients area. So now we have that information there inserted into the database, but now we need to have it in the supplier table. So we need to head on to the supplier. So maybe let me just do some housekeeping here. Just remove that. So here we need to write some script that will help us to pull that information and store it in the table that we're having here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go direct to having that script here. So so I'll have the PHP opening and closing tags, of course, and within that, first of all, I'm going to require a connection, that is the database connection, and so that one should be in the page, in the folder include, and con.php. Let me confirm if it is include or includes. And so I'm collect, and so now that I have connection to the database, I can create a variable called SQL, and this one will now have the select statement. So writing these statements is always good to have them in capital letters, and I want to select everything, so I'll use the asterisk to mean that I want to get all the information. If you don't want to get all the information, then instead of the star, you need now to put in the actual field names like name, age, phone number, such. And so I'm getting this from the supplier table. Remember, now with this connection, I'm able to get to the suppliers table. So now I'll now create a query that is going to fetch the data from the database. In fact, I can just come and have an INI here that fetches data from the database. So I'm going to create a variable called results, and I'll set that to be equal to MYSQLI. So and the arguments will be the connection to the database and the SQL, that is this one, and what we're having in this script here. So now the next thing that we need to do is to check if there are any records in the database. Database. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the if statement, and I'm going to have that with a condition if less, that is the results that you're having here. If that is equal true, then what I need to do is to count how many rows I have, like the records have occupied how many rows. So to be able to calculate the number of rows or count the number of rows, I'm going to use the MySQLi num rows, and I'm going to have that with a variable result. So now that we already know the number of rows, therefore I can come and use another if statement. And now this if statement it will have the condition of if the count is greater than 0. This means that we have some records. We should now store those records in various variables. Else, maybe we can come and say echo So that is in a scenario where we don't have any records, but if we have the records, then we need to loop through all the records that we have in the table. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, or I'm going to create the while loop. I'm going to have the while loop rather, so while loop. And so the condition here will be, I'm going to create a variable called lows, and this is where I'm going to store the information that will be fetched using the MySQLI underscore fetch underscore assoc. Should have the variable of results as for the connection to the database and all that. And so now that I have looped through the rows or the columns in the table, and now I have the information being stored in this variable called lows, and so therefore I can be able to come and store the information in variables. That way I can be able to reuse it for some other purposes. So the first one will be the ID. I'm going to get that from the lows, and I need to tell it the specific record that I need, in this case being ID. I also need to duplicate that because I need several. So I need the name, I need the email, I need the phone, and the location. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so I'm going to have the variable. The first one is name. So from the variable rows, give me the name and I store it there. We are having the email, so from the rows get the email and store it here. And here we are having the status. We're going to use the status later. Status. And finally I'm having the location, and that one should be location. And so now that I have the information there, I can now do with it whatever I want. But now for this case I want to have that information in a table. And so as you can see, my table is down here. So here the body. So what I'm going to do is within this body, and because I'm using the while loop, I'm going to grab the whole of this table and have it within the loop, and that way now I'm able to get all the records in the table. If I only want one of the records from the table, or maybe one row, then I don't need to have it within the loop. Or maybe I can also have it within the loop, but now here I specify the records that I want from here. Maybe you can say where the ID is equals to, you specify, or where the location is equals to, then you specify. So now we want all of them in our case, and so having that there, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to So I'm going to open another PHP tag, and within here now I'm going to close, I'm going to come and close these curly brackets. So this one, I'm going to ensure that they are closed down there, and wait a minute, because we should have 3 of them. Oh yeah, we have another one here, sorry. So I'm going to come and close that now down here. So I'll close 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm having it like that because we have already closed them here. So in fact I need to grab this because that's what we should be having here instead. Yeah, like that also. Let me see. Yeah, so basically now what that will do is it will close this curly bracket, close this and close this. But now I'm not just closing that below here as it would be the case. I'm closing them down here because I need to have this table, which is HTML, wrapped within PHP, and more significantly within the while loop. That way now I'm able to get all the records that we have in this table. So all the records now can appear in this table because I have it wrapped within the while loop. And so that's why I needed to close and open PHP, and within that I have the table, and then now below that now I close the curly brackets like so. And so now with that I should be able to get a difference if I refresh the page here. And so as you can see, we are having the records here, although they are not the actual records, but now this tells us that we are headed somewhere, because if you count these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is the number of records that we have inserted here. I also need to refresh that. As you can see, there are 6 of them, so I just now need to get the actual information here. So what I now need to do is now come and open my table, and now instead of having name here, the constant name, I'm going to come and echo the names. Of course I need to have the PHP opening tag, and then here I can echo the variable name, because as you can see we stored the name from the database here, and so we are able to echo it here. And so I'm going to grab that and replace it with this one, and this one, this one should be the email. And also the location. So I'm going to get rid of that, and this one will be location. Perfecto. So now that one being like that, we can now refresh that page. So now after refreshing the page, now you can see we have John Doe, we have Jane Doe, we have James Doe, we have Doe Caroline, James Caroline, and James Joe. And of course the location, and for now the status is reading inactive, sorry, active rather, but that is what we are having here. And so we just need to have a small script here that is going to tell us the status of the supplier as from the database, if the database is updated, sorry. So I'm going to have PHP, and I'm going to use the if statement, of course. And so here I'm going to say if the status, because now the status is picked from the database and stored here. So we're going to say that if the status is equals to 0, then here we are going to echo, and so we're going to say echo active, and else if that is not the case, then we can echo inactive. Let's try that. If it works, it doesn't, of course we can always fix it. Now it says inactive because let me see, inactive. Okay, if the status is equal, we are not assigning the 0 to this variable, but we are comparing, and so in that case we need to use 2 equals. Yes, because this one is one that is going to compare, the other one is going to assign this one to this. So hoping that I was able to, yeah, so that one is okay. You can see active. And so if we try to maybe manually manipulate one of them here, so that it's not a 0, it is 1 or any other value, and update that and refresh that, then you should be able to see that one is inactive. And this is something that we'll be using a button, a single click of a button to activate or deactivate, and so it will be doing what we have just done here, replacing this with a 0. And you can also be able to see that we're able to fix the issue that we had here. Yeah, so I think that's about it. So in the next episode, we're going to work on the action, that is delete and update the supplier table, because I don't want to make this tutorial to be quite long, so just bear with me that we stop it at that point. And so having said that, see you in the next one as usual.